leave right now.
They're checked out for the weekend already.
Yep, already.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening.
It's not on the calendar, but now it's an employee appreciation day or whatever. So.
Have these meetings always been streamed live for a while? Have these meetings always been streamed live for a while? Well, I just noticed on the, here, right?
Well, do we need a quorum to have the meeting if there's no action items?
Yes, we do. He told me this morning he was not gonna be here, Mo was supposed to be here as a proxy, but he was supposed to have come one before, and Mo has never shown up.
Thank you for recognizing. No,
I saw both of them today from what that's worth.
couldn't make it today. We were completely spread out all over.
But he is one of the quorum, he would be one of the quorum?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a definite no.
And I tried to be his proxy, but then I'm having my own in absence, so.
Can you be two people?
I tried.
I mean, Kyle's a big guy, big shoes to fill, but, you know, I was hoping that we put Becky on the committee, trust for these situations.
If you can get somebody to appoint her.
Can we just do that quick?
No. Well, I guess Christina, you're a director at the county. Hire her temporarily for 5 minutes.
Oh,
Well, can I grab someone to sub for Renee?
there you go, that's
Sure.
the
I
trick,
could go just get somebody.
just a body, we always look for the body.
Hey, good job. I'll make an executive decision. I don't know how cricket this is.
They're off tomorrow.
Right? So like tick, tick, tick.
There's people heading to happy hour right now.
Do you know if the other CD ones from the city, are they off today or?
He's on vacation and Tim seems to be neck deep in stuff, and now that he's not here, I kind of suspect he may have forgotten that the meeting was today. It happens, so, yeah, it does. I showed up at the wrong location.
I know. It's just 6 months on.
And they could have
6
still
months
made it,
off.
but I said, screw it, I'm done. The world is telling me something.
Or we could have people stuck at the,
I think if I keep going
Tim
down
would be
the road,
stuck at the traffic jam at
I'll hit by
Alpha.
an asteroid somehow.
Gotcha.
Went pretty quick when I came through it. Because I came from the city hall.
No, well, then, Tim has notes.
I was in a training that was supposed to be done at 3:30 and it was still going, so I had to leave it.
Or was that the,
Hiring and selection.
didn't you? Because I was in that not that long ago, and I thought you were in that same.
Well, whatever the cycle is, I think everything's pretty much on 2 years now, under the new requirements.
You told me I was bad administrative homework, but I have actually been supposed to take some driving. I don't know how many years ago at this point, but I've not been notified of anything, so I'm.
So technically, you're not supposed to be driving a city vehicle.
I haven't been notified of anything, and honestly, I don't drive the MPO truck myself.
Well, now we
Hardly ever anymore.
town and see us already down for the holiday.
Wouldn't surprise me, although I saw both Edward and Rod yesterday, but I mean, yesterday.
Are you even there? Right. And I'm like, I don't know, there's just something about showing a face and then it's tendency. I don't, or even Christmas. If it's soon, I find it very disconcerting that everybody.
Bring somebody in.
Great.
Yay! We saved the day.
You're proxying for Renee Molina, by the way. You're proxying for Renee Molina.
Oh, I know. I changed gender all of a sudden.
We need another chair.
There's no chair.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. We appear to have a quorum. And we are
Okay, thank
after
you.
4 o'clock.
Okay, thank you. I'll call the meeting to order for the Mesilla Valley Metropolitan Planning Organization Technical Advisory Committee of April 6, 2023. I think I'll start having everybody who's present, all the members present, state their name. And just a reminder, whenever you make motions, comments, seconds, please state your name as well for the clerk. I'll start.
Charlene Santisteban, proxy for Renee Molina.
Ashley Curry, Las Cruces Public Schools.
David Armijo, SCRTD, Transit.
Michael Garza, Doñana County Flood Commission.
Mike Bartholomew, City of Las Cruces Roadrunner Transit Director.
Christina Ainsworth, Doñana County.
Andreas Lenen, NMDOT.
Thank you. First action is approval of the agenda. Is the agenda any changes?
Mr. Chair, there are no changes to the agenda.
Okay, could I receive a motion for approval of agenda?
Ashley Curry, I put forth a motion to approve the agenda.
Michael Garza, second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Next item is approval of the minutes of March 2nd, 2023. Any comments or revisions to the minutes? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Christina Ainsworth, move to approve.
Michael Garza, second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of March 2nd, 2023. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Public comment? I don't see any public present. Discussion items. First item is South Central Regional Transit District transition to electric buses presentation.
Mr. Chair, this will be presented by Mr. David Armijo.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, David Armijo, the Executive Director for South Central Regional Transit District. I've been asked to make a presentation, talk a little bit about the transition to electric buses. I'm stealing a presentation. I know Michael saw it when we were at the Mexico Transit Association about 3 weeks ago. I have upgraded a little bit. So I'm going to go through this fairly quick, and I'll take any questions you all may have. So the first slide I'm using is just really to point out the regional service that we have. We've been operating bus services in this region for 7 years, mostly with a hodgepodge of new and used buses, some of which have now reached their full life in 7 years, which is amazing, in part because we started with about 250,000 miles of service a year. We're now doing over 500,000 miles of service, so some of our buses are getting as much as 45, 50,000 miles, so they're getting old really quick. So several of them are ready to be retired. On the left-hand side, you can see we have 7 bus routes. If you can read through that, at the top is the green route, which goes to Hatch from, well, actually it connects all the way to New Mexico State University. So that one is about a 45-mile route one way. So you can just imagine as you're doing routes all day that's going to add in miles pretty quick. Most of our service, like the red route between New Mexico State University and Anthony, kind of the hub or centerpiece of our service area, does about 25, 30 miles in each direction. And that runs on the hour. So we have a lot of buses out there, 2 buses, 1 in each direction at any time. And that's from 6:30, 7 in the morning to about 6 o'clock, 6:30 at night. And then you start working your way down the green, another green route, but the green is, which is the turquoise route, is actually our chaparral route from Anthony, goes to the North Gate, east side of El Paso. And then you hardly can see it, but you can see on the left side is the purple route, connects from Anthony all the way into Sunland Park. Then down there, you can barely see it because it's all urbanized, is our yellow and silver routes, which ironically are the 2 routes that carry the most ridership. So they're short, have high frequency compared to the other routes, and they're much more in an urbanized area. On the right-hand side, you can see we're now looking at finally, and poor Michael has heard this from me for 5 or 6 years, we're finally got a route that's going to go up to Sierra County. My plan is to run through the Sierra County area, Williamsburg, Elephant Butte, and so on, and then connect at Hatch with the green route. So actually the 2 will be a route feeder that allows me to turn that route back. Why? It's about 45 miles just from, Hatch to Williamsburg. So it's a lot of miles on that route. So I'm trying to save that and cut back. And we're getting some new buses, so that's going to help. So the zero emission plan is something that's become a major support mechanism and obstacle in this transit industry. Obstacle from the standpoint that until last year, June 2022, if you didn't have a plan in place, you couldn't apply for no-load grants, which we did and got $2.5 million for 3 buses. However, the plan is a great thing from a planning standpoint because it actually forces you to sit down and think about what is it you're trained to do? Why are you doing electric buses? What is going to be the service cycle for those buses over a course of years? How are you going to fund those things? How are you going to have charging stations and all the other kind of stuff? All that goes into the plan as well as your actual service. As I just showed you the mapping, you got to start thinking of those, how many hours a day, what's the range on the buses and so on. So there's a lot that goes with that. So let me continue on this. In addition to the zero emission plan, this gives us an opportunity to buy buses or get grants for buses. We were successful in getting 2 grants. The first one here is $2.5 million for what they call NOLO, which is all electric, and that will provide the buses the money for 3 electric buses. We chose Gillig. This organization allows us to partner. I'm going to get to that in a minute. So as we partner with a company, we chose Gillig because they can do buses that are 35-footers like this one. This is a hybrid bus. We already own 2 of them, but they can also do like 225 miles a day. Or you can put more batteries on them and get 300 miles. So the service cycle we have for the yellow route where these buses will be from Sunland Park to downtown is roughly about 165 miles a day, all day. But if you run an AM PM bus, then you're great. You can get by with either a smaller fueling station or fast fuel and just have an AM PM bus. So if you do that, then you have to expand your fleet, which we're actually going to do because 50,000 miles on a bus in a year is probably more than you really want to run on a bus. So we think bringing that number down is also part of our zero emission plan. We also believe we can reach 100% zero emission within the next 10 years. And I'll go through each of the schedules as we build to that. Now, we start from the point of view that we have 3 bus facilities. We maintain and we own a facility in Anthony, and that's kind of in that centerpiece where you saw the red and the purple and the turquoise kind of coming together in the center of Doña Ana County. We have a Las Cruces satellite facility over at the Mesilla Hospital. We park 3 buses there. We run service that goes out to Hatch. We run service in town. That's a connector between Doña Ana County Village and going all the way to the Move It Center. And then we have the Sunland Park facility, which is lease, and it's a piece of the property that we're looking to buy. And so what we hope to do with that, it's a very raw estimate on there, and I don't see Michael McAdams here because I know he worked with me on this. So we picked up a second grant last year. We submitted all this in June, and it was $3.1 million for 2 electric buses and purchase of this facility. So we're currently leasing the facility. The facility used to be a truck facility for training. So we're actually just going to take it back in time to where you can see the building above. It says administration and training. So we'll use that part of the building for that. We'll use the building we're in now, the maintenance shop, which we can get buses in, two different ones through that, which is enough. We have about 6 buses out there right now. It's 11 acres. A big part of that property on the southern part is undeveloped, and we have plans for that, and I'm going to show you that in a minute. This is back to a NOLO grant, the 2.5. This was a electric bus that's headed to North Carolina. It came here in January during the Power Up convention that we had over at the convention center. And so there was a number of activities and different companies that we looked at. So this is identical to the Gillig hybrid we see when you see the yellow bus, but this is actually electric. You see the zero emission power battery. This is exactly what the first 3 buses will come. They'll look like the yellow bus. We're not going to use the blue. And they do have a bus range of, like I said, 225 to 300. We think that's more than enough. So we have plans for that as we go. Now, I think the key thing I want to leave with this is probably if we've learned anything, and I met with my staff this week, is a partnership. When you're starting a new technology, you really have to have some sense of what you're getting into. I've got a really nice maintenance staff that's pretty good with vehicles, and they certainly know how to do Chevys and Fords and things like that, and they've learned a lot about our buses, but they haven't really dealt with a lot of other alternative fuels. I've been privy in my career to deal with every power-based fuel there is. I've done fuel cell buses in Oakland. I've done natural gas vehicles, liquefied natural gas, and so on and so forth. Doesn't make me an expert, by the way. It just means I've dealt with and I've heard all the stories about what works and what doesn't work. But where the partnership comes in, and that's what I've had to do in all these other organizations I've worked for over the years, is you have to have a team. And so when we chose Gillig Manufacturing, I've worked with Gillig for almost 30 years. So I have a very good understanding of their company. I've been to their plant where they make the buses. And we have 2 vehicles. And so we've been able to break that process in. We've built relationships between their mechanics, their warranty people, and everything else. So all that gets extended to us with the electric vehicles. So we're dealing with a different propulsion system, but we're still dealing with the same people. And that's a key part of that. So we've got that in place. We've worked with, and I give credit to the Mesilla Valley MPO, because by the way, when we're doing the grants, they ask us a whole bunch of questions about things that require somebody who knows data and all the stuff that planners and engineers do. And so they were really a significant part of our submitting our grant applications back in June. So without the MPO as a partner, we would have had a very difficult time doing that. We would have to depend on somebody else or hire staff to do that. We're using ChargePoint. That's the company. In fact, if you go outside, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that's a ChargePoint fueling station out there that the county just put in, which is great. They're a good company. That's part of our partnership. And so when we do these grants, one of the things that the federal government has allowed in the partnership of the grant is that if you partner with them in the grant, that simplifies your procurement process. So you're kind of, they give you a little prayer to that and you're all in. So that saves a lot of time and it helps us with that. So ChargePoint is helping us to get the charging stations as part of their agreement, working with Gillig. We'll tap into their team as we move into it. We just had a call earlier this week. And so Diamond is one of the companies that's here in Santa Teresa that's a certified contractor with ChargePoint. They're going to help us with the install. And then El Paso Electric is also working with us to get some additional grants to help us upgrade the line that has to be done before we can install the chargers later this fall. So that's all working out. So very much a partnership in this process. I won't go too much through this. Michael, I've added a couple of points. You've seen this before. Kind of where we started, and I mentioned planning a moment ago. I mean, planning is a very key part. We were doing our 10-year plan a couple years back. I know Michael was doing one as well. We're kind of working on that at different times together. So we had to look at asset management. We had to look at our fleet. We had to look at where we're going. At the time I was making the presentation here a couple of years back, I didn't know where we're going to get the money for any of this. This is before the infrastructure money came available and so on. So June is a critical day that will live in infamy for us and our organization because that's the date that we submitted our grant applications. And if you jump down to August, we picked up $5.6 million between those 2 grants. That's kind of unheard of for a little agency. Now, Michael, of course, got like $5.7 million, and I think you got a second one. So you got lots of money, you get lots of stuff because you're the big boy in the town. I'm the little guy that's, doing the best I can with what I have. But anyway, did pretty good. So as we go forward, I was also invited to submit for CMAQ grants. And I was awarded one, and then I was awarded two more. So I ended up with 3 grants totaling $5.2 million. And just before I came here today, I got another $240,000 from the state to add to my CMAQ. So now that's back up to 5.4. I actually brought it down because I was being cost effective, because we ended up with 3 charging stations in the first grants, and then another 2, well, at one time 5 in the February, and each charging station has 2 pumps. So we're getting 10 buses, I need 5 chargers. So I cut money out of my budget, about $300,000 worth, because I didn't need it. The $250,000 is going in to help offset the higher cost of the vehicles. So that's good for us. And so now we're in March 2023. We began the facility acquisition process. I just did an appraisal. I'm working with my board this month to talk about making an offer to buy the facility I just showed you earlier. So we're doing pretty well with that. A lot quicker than your 10 years, Michael.
What was that?
10 years that you spent. He's got great slides. You should see him on all that. He's got them by year, by month. That's amazing. You coupled all that money together. You're very patient. So no, it's tough. We got lucky that we were able to get a chunk of money and find a property that was available for a fraction of the cost, but it's used. We're not, we'll have to build on it. So that went through in facility. Now we're in April. Charging stations have been ordered, and the equipment is being programmed to be connected once the electric company gets their work done in August. So we should have everything flowing. We're targeting September as the date to install it all. Gillig is a little nervous about us because they're going, well, you're going to have charging stations 6 months before the buses. Well, it's a chicken and egg. First, they told me, if you don't get the charging stations, you can't have the buses. So I jumped through the hoops, and I got the charging stations, so where are my buses? So, we too can play at that game. So we'll see, if we can get them any earlier. But that's the schedule. The charging stations, you can see the one outside. I've used that photo. We're looking at rear, and actually it's going to be more like this. This photo is from, I don't remember the town. It's a Chinese company or city. This is supposedly the largest charging station ever built for, I don't know, it's a couple hundred vehicles. But we're not going to build that station, but we like the picture. We do plan to do something on the order of storage and charging. We're hoping to put solar and chargers into facilities, both at our Anthony facility owned, and then once we have the one in Sunland Park. And then finally, that if you remember the picture, we have about 4, 5, 6 acres of undeveloped. We're looking to put in somewhat of a solar farm. We're actually submitting another grant next week. It's due in. We think we can get this money. We've been working with our 2 contractors. We've got a whole lot of stuff. Just got to pull it all together and figure the math of, how many kilowatts do we generate for this and what's our break even. And I'll tell you, I have done this before. I did this 20 years ago in San Fernando Valley and San Fernando. I had 2 operating garages. And we put the solar in and all of those, and we generated quite a bit of money. In fact, we had a turbine, so we were charging and storing on the property and online on the grid. So we would draw down how much money we'd spend in a month, and then we would also draw down how many revenues we'd generate in a month. We expected 2.5 years for the payback on those 2 facilities, which house 500 buses and 20 acres. And I think it's about $120,000 a month, so over $1 million a year in use. And we broke even in the 2nd year. So the only thing I can't explain is why none of my peers followed me on this. So there's 11 operating garages in LA, and there's only 2 of those with solar. So my hope is, as I get closer and farther in this, I'll share my information with Mike. And then Tony up north, and I think if we can find a way to break through this, maybe there's a way that we can all share in that. I think we're going to have to do a lot of partnerships. I didn't really show that part in the slide, but somewhere in there, Michael's ahead of me on a lot of things, and so I'm, training, webinars. So I think we both have to work on this together and with our teams and learn from this. So I hope to leave you with this aspect that in the end, we hope to have clean air as the years go by. And although we may be a small footprint between transit in Las Cruces and Doña Ana County, I think we're doing our part, and hopefully others will follow. Any questions?
Thank you, David. Any questions from the committee? I know that you have the advantage of you're going to have the chargers there 6 months or so before the buses. We're kind of the other way around. Our buses are almost ready and the chargers aren't, the charging system. When you worked with El Paso Electric, did you already have the infrastructure at the facility so it didn't require like new transformers or anything?
Okay, real short, no. Actually, they came out during the zero emission plan. And so they told me that what's interesting, we're right there on Canella and Futurity. And across the street from us is where they train the horses in the track. And then down the street is on Sunland Drive is where the actual casino, all that is. So we were concerned about the power, even though the power station is only 2 miles away, off the main drag. The facility is at least 30 years old. So what do we have? Well, the good news is we have 2 power lines. And the main line is the one right where our buses are. So it's perfectly staged. The bad news is neither one of them can do anything I'm showing you. Both have to be upgraded and get done. And we're caught again in a chicken and egg. So we've been working with them for a year. Everything's good. We get everything set up. And now we're talking to them this week and they're going, because our contractors are ready to go. And they're going, well, we got to order the equipment. What have you guys been doing for 12 months? And I was like, so, hopefully we'll get it done. The upside to us is that they need a project. They really need a project in El Paso. So I know they're working with you as well, but they really want to get a project or 2 out there. And so I think they were looking at El Paso Sun Metro, and now they've realized that El Paso Sun Metro is not moving. You're moving, you're in front, I'm catching up to you. But hopefully between the 2 of us, we have a pretty good couple of projects that will work well for El Paso, and hopefully we'll have good relations with them.
Yep.
We'll see.
I'm pleased with how Doñana County is doing with the electric bus situation. And yeah, I think just based on your timeline and our experience with ours is anybody getting into this electric vehicle thing, you should be talking to El Paso Electric now with your plans and have your plans out now. One of the things with El Paso Electric is they don't want to build out their infrastructure for your pipe dream. They want to build it out for what you're actually going to be having at the time you have the vehicles coming in. And so it takes a lot of work with El Paso Electric that's been one of the holdups in getting our charging system at our facility that we're getting built. We're in a very industrial area. There's a cement plant there near the city's JU facility, pretty much across the street down there. And it's going to require another transformer, which is a major expense. So.
Yeah, it's a very unusual dynamic having a dialogue with the electric company. They have a lot of very young engineers.
Yep. But we're having regular meetings with them now, so that's good. So. Any other questions for David? Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Item 5.2 on discussion is the Mesilla Valley MPO Annual Safety Report.
And Mr. Chair, Ms. Katarina Purvingi will be presenting this item.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Committee. This is the Mesilla Valley MPO 2023 Annual Safety Report. So this year's Annual Safety Report focuses specifically on 2020 crash data. In total, in 2020, we had a total of 3,002 crashes. 16 of those resulted in fatalities. 36 of those had serious injuries. Specifically, when I say serious injuries, I mean Class A. And of the total crashes, 69 of those did involve pedestrians and bicyclists. Excuse me. So last year I presented these numbers, and here they are again, just as a reminder. These are our trend rates for fatalities. As you can see, from 2016 to 2020, it fluctuates a lot. And even though we have a projected trend of increasing, it's unclear as to whether we can rely on this just because it fluctuates so much. It goes up, down, up, down. So those are the number of fatalities. This is the rate of fatalities, and it mirrors the same exact thing. It fluctuates greatly, so again, same thing. Not sure if it'll follow the projected trends that we have here, but that's what we have. So with our rate of fatalities, we went ahead and compared it to the state's rate of fatalities. Theirs fluctuates only a little bit, while ours fluctuates greatly. In the projections, the state of New Mexico is showing a level, basically it levels out in their projections. Ours, again, because of the fluctuation, it's unclear, but that's what we have. It is showing a drop, though, in 2023. One can only hope. So of the fatalities, these are the locations of where they occurred. We did have 2 crashes that resulted in 2 fatalities in one incident. So that's why we have 2 different kinds of dots. We have 1 and 2. So 34 crashes, but 36 fatalities. Oh, and in the inset, that is around Vado. Okay, so this is a classification of fatalities around Las Cruces and town of Mesilla. I do focus on other areas after this one. So we do have 3 pedestrian-involved fatalities, basically in the center area. And we have other vehicle, basically a car crash, a fatality resulting a car crash resulting in a fatality caused by another vehicle. And we have it on Highway 70. We also have one getting into North Valley. The black dots, those represent a fatality from a car crash involving a fixed object. So this is East Mesa. Again, same thing, classification of those fatalities. We have a fixed object further out over by Weissner. And then over here by Sonoma Ranch Boulevard, there was a fatality from a crash with another vehicle, or involving another vehicle. From fatalities, now we're looking at serious injuries. We are showing a decreasing trend in number of serious injuries. Again, these are Class A injuries. And then
This is Mike Bartholomew. Can I ask what the definition of a serious injury is?
it's a Class A injury. It means basically hospitalization, damage beyond repair to the person, or just requiring heavy medical assistance, near death.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So that's what we mean by serious injury. So again, it's showing a decreasing trend, and as our projections are showing that as well. Now for the rate of serious injuries, again, also showing a decreasing trend. There was a spike in 2017, but it's been falling since then. And when we compare our rate of serious injuries, and the rate is based on 100 million vehicle miles traveled. And so when we compare to the state kind of has a leveled rate. It doesn't fluctuate much. And with ours, because we're decreasing, our projections are showing that we are going to be having less serious injuries, or a rate of serious injuries after 2020. So for the serious injuries, we do have, again, here's the locations of them. If we did have some that were, if you see the gray, and the reason why they're gray is because on the police report, it was left blank for the classification. We do have basically the black ones, fixed objects, other vehicles, pedal cyclists or bicyclists, and also pedestrian involved serious injuries. And up in, this is North Valley area, so we do have one way up here that was from, that was resulting from another vehicle. And then the 2 down here, basically Hayride and South, this one was on I-25. and this one was on Diana Road. These two were not listed. They did not have the classification listed. This is South Valley. We did have a pedestrian involved serious injury that was on I-10. We had two, excuse me, we did have two basically northern side of Vado, weren't marked, and then we had another one that involved another vehicle. I'm sorry, a fixed object, and then down here we have another, down by Chamberino was a serious injury from another vehicle. So this data is only the just the fatalities and the serious injuries, but this is comparing them month by month. So, of course, 2020 was when the pandemic happened. Pre-pandemic, showing we had more fatalities. Well, as we get to February and March, more fatalities here, and then less serious injuries. However, we did have more serious injuries in January. And then as quarantine happened, we had, obviously the numbers kind of dropped, except for fatalities. We did still have some occur. And then towards June, July, when I think some businesses were trying to open up, they were trying to start, people were starting to slowly come out. We did have an increase in serious injuries. And then towards the end of the year, we had, at the very end, we didn't have any fatalities from October, November, December. However, we did have more serious injuries. And then we also compared it by the hour. So there's a trend we can see, and there are other slides that show it as well. As the day progresses, more people come out and are using the roads. That increases your chances of having a car accident or a crash occur. So these are the fatalities by the hour, and then the serious injuries by the hour. We also looked at just parts of the day. For fatalities, the majority occurred in daylight, and then the second occurrence was in the evening hours. For serious injuries, it was almost the same for three of those. There were less in the daylight, less serious injuries in daylight, and more in the afternoon, evening, and at nighttime. This is looking at the fatalities and serious injuries based on the light conditions at the location of where these occurred. Again, the light visibility, light condition, those are filled out on the police report, and those are basically what the police officer at the scene writes down. So it's based on his or her judgment. So that's why we have daylight, dark but lighted, dark unknown lighting, and then dark, no light at all. For hit and runs, excuse me, we did have some hit and runs, but on the positive side, we had more that did not have hit and runs for both fatalities and serious injuries. So on this map, this compares the time of day, the hours of the day, with the day of the week. It's a heat map, so it kind of shows, this is all of the crashes, all 3,002 crashes. And it does show a trend of, like I mentioned previously, as the day progresses, more drivers are out on the road, and with more drivers out on the road, there is a higher chance for car crashes to occur, as this shows. We also compared the day of the week to the month of the year. Pre-pandemic, we were showing towards the end of the week, midweek, end of the week in January, more midweek. And you can see this trend, how as the week progresses, crash rates increase, the number of crashes increase. And then of course, March was when we had, excuse me, the pandemic, and you can see numbers drop. But if you look at the trend, we can still see that towards the end of the week, we still have, as the week progresses, we have more and more car crashes occurring. These are the different factors that were involved in all, this is looking at all 3,002 crashes. Not all of the crashes had any factors. A majority of the crashes didn't have any of these factors involved. But of all of them that did, the highest factor involved was alcohol. And followed that, there were following that, crashes who had trucks involved as well. This is all car crashes and lighting, lighting of the location. More people are out on the road during the day. There's going to be more crashes in broad daylight. This is focusing on non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries. So now we're looking at pedestrian and pedal cyclists involved crashes. We have a very high fluctuation. Our trend is showing a slight increasing trend, but because of the fluctuations, it might not follow our trend or our predictions. In total, we had 69 total pedestrian and pedal cyclist involved crashes. Of those, 39 were pedestrian and 30 were pedal cyclists. We had 4 fatalities involving a pedestrian, and then we had 3, pedestrian. So that we had 4 fatalities with pedestrian involved crashes. We had 3 serious injuries with pedestrian involved crashes. We had 3 pedal cyclists involved serious injuries. There were no fatalities with pedal cyclists involved crashes. This is looking at both pedal cyclists and pedestrian involved crashes and looking at the light conditions. So there's a lot of yellow, which represents daylight. Of course, more people out on the road, higher chances of having a car accident or crash occur. We did have, in some areas, we did have basically dark, not lit. We had some poorly lit areas. Sorry. And then this one down here, this is in South Valley, along basically on I-10 and also along Stern. This is a heat map, very similar to before, but this one is only looking at pedal cyclists and pedestrian involved crashes. So we're comparing the day of the week to the time of the day, and it appears that, of course, more people getting out and about. We do have, as the week progresses, it looks like we tend to have more pedal cyclists and pedestrian involved crashes than at the beginning. And it occurs mostly, it starts about lunchtime, late morning, and then progressively gets a little worse as the day goes on into the evening hours. And just like before, trying to see if there are any trends with days of the week and months of the year. January, February, March, higher numbers than before, and then pandemic hit, and then the numbers drop. However, we do have some hot spots on this map. And it's as the year progresses as well, so as people start coming out more. This is comparing pedestrian and pedal cyclists involved crashes. This is for both. So the number of pedestrians in the month, we had a spike. We had a spike at the beginning of the year for both, and for pedal cyclists and pedestrian involved crashes. Sorry about the title. It is both. It does. So for pedal cyclists involved crashes, it does kind of stay steady, but then with pedestrian involved crashes, there's a slight drop after lockdown, after shutdown. But then it increases again as the year progresses. Also, again, pedestrian and pedal cyclists involved crashes, comparing when they occur, morning, afternoon, evening, or nighttime. For pedal cyclists, more during the day and the afternoon. And then it decreases a little in evening and at night, which makes sense. And then for pedestrians, it was a lot higher in the mornings. And then the afternoon and evening were about the same. And then severity of crashes. So like I mentioned earlier, there were no fatal crashes that involved a pedal cyclist. Only 13% had property damage, and the rest of them resulted in an injury. And that's any injury. And then the pedestrians, we did have a fatality crash, but the majority of it resulted in an injury. And then also looking at the light conditions, top one is pedal cyclists. So for cyclists, they're more out during the day, since we have more during the day and in broad daylight. And then for pedestrians, we did have more during the day, but we also had a large amount in a dark, not lit areas, along with dark but still kind of lit areas. And then looking at hit and runs, unfortunately, we did have some that had hit and runs occur, but the majority of them did not, for both pedal cyclists and pedestrian involved crashes. And that's it. Questions, comments?
Are there any questions or comments by the committee?
Mr. Chair, Ashley Curry. I'm just wondering where we're ranked nationwide for pedestrian and bicycle fatalities.
I don't know at the top of my head. I think I remember seeing it in the NMDOT's state safety report. I can get back to you on that next week.
I would believe from my research that we're #1 in the nation.
Right.
And so I would be interested to see what other states' trends look like. You know, are other states' predictions and trends also trending upwards? Or is there something that we should be doing more of locally to make an adjustment there?
Yeah, I was going to comment, David Armijo. I know that our Secretary of Transportation just left New Mexico. He's here the last couple of days. I'm not sure if you're following that. Oh, interesting. You sound like you knew, because that's what he was here for. So he was making presentations in Albuquerque on Tuesday. He was in Deming yesterday morning with, I guess, the Lieutenant Governor, and then he had a noon presentation he was doing at New Mexico State University. But the purpose of the trip was because of the Infrastructure Act, and specifically in the case of northern New Mexico, he was there because of safety and some of the things that they're doing. He was focused on highway and road safety, not public transportation. But I thought I heard in the MO, or I read it in a press release, that we're like #1 in the country for fatalities. So, which is significant, because I know that in Santa Ana and Orange County, they're #1 in the state of New Mexico, of California, and their numbers are much bigger because it's a bigger area. But I would also be interested to see what the trend lines are around the country, and what are considered to be the issues. This is a very good presentation. It's clearly does show that most accidents are during the day, but it does show peaks at 8 o'clock at night for some of those. And we've been seeing these presentations for a while, so it looks like we're kind of where we've been. So then I think I agree. I would like to see what else can we do or be doing.
Okay,
So thank you.
thank you.
Mr. Chair, this is Andrew Ray for MPO staff. It's an important clarification that New Mexico is #1 per capita, not in absolute numbers.
Thank God. We're small. It's still bad, unfortunately.
Are there other comments from the committee?
Andreas Lanen, a follow-up question following David's comment. Looking at the statistics and comparing serious injuries to the type, I mean, I just look injuries by month, serious fatalities versus the bicycle-involved crashes, what correlates. How do these 2020 graphs and data, how does the data bank compare to pre-COVID behavior. Do we have data on that? Do we see that we're falling?
We do have data and should have compared to previous years, but
Yes.
that can be done for next year's safety report. Yeah, we do have numbers from previous, and I have been trying to work on a map with GIS where it shows an animation of, because one of our GIS techs, he was able to create an animated map somehow where it shows different hotspots throughout the years and as time progresses. So like, when we have time, we wanted to sit down and talk about that. We just haven't gotten to it yet.
Yeah, the reason I'm bringing it up because I think it's very important for us also to understand growth of population. We're seeing the change in transportation methods. More and more people use bicycles nowadays than 10 years ago. You know, so obviously when you have a bigger population within that transportation group, automatically the statistically chance for injuries or crashes goes up as well. So I'm just, yes, we've seen these reports, and we're looking at it annually in just that window. I think it's very important that we don't forget the big picture, you know, and how are we really getting worse or are we stagnant? You know, I don't think it's that clear just looking at the 2020 data. That's,
Okay.
you know, so
Mr.
that's
Chair,
all I had to bring up.
Thank you.
Mr.
Betts,
Chair,
did
may
you
I
have-
respond? Oh, sorry. May I respond to that quickly or afterwards?
Go ahead.
He said. I would just, with all due respect, I would say that, you know, again, we're looking at a per capita rate, and I would say that across the nation, there'll be more people on bicycles. Across the nation, there are more people walking. But what are we doing in the state of New Mexico to no longer be number one and seeing these trends increasing, albeit there may be more people out walking and biking than there were before? We still should be looking at how we can move from being number one in the nation per capita to, you know, not being at the very top of the list for that. And I'm just looking at a big general, what are we doing as a state and as an organization that looks at transportation safety to, it's one thing to acknowledge the data, but I think we need some action to counter that trend. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, actually, that's pretty close to what the point I was going to make. I really would like to see us moving towards zero fatalities, and anything we can do to do that. And I think I would ask the MPO to look into maybe a presentation for us on how do we get in that, how do we work in that direction to a zero fatality. I mean, I know a lot of communities around this country, that's their goal, and that's what I want our goal to be. I very much recognize Andreas's point that the numbers are going up, but I'm very much in agreement that we shouldn't be accepting that. We should be looking at what's happening in all of these cases. What could we be doing? Because I don't think pedestrian fatalities with cars are ever, it's not something we just have to live with, I don't think, is what I would say.
This is Mike Bartholomew. I kind of agree with the comments up here too, that, you know, we're from a planning point of view and trying to reduce these kinds of crashes, where do we go from here with this data? And it's a really complicated question because it's a lot more than just transportation engineering to make things better, because there's contributing factors like alcoholism and drug use and speeding, you know, in a poor driver training and things like that too in the community. So it seems like it has to, it's a social issue and it's a transportation issue that it has to be worked with together to bring crashes down.
Right.
If I may, last comment, Andreas Lenin, I want to thank staff for putting these reports together, because these reports are actually the basic for us as entities, as representatives of the community, to actually come up with the plans and the studies and the improvement projects. No, I don't believe MPO staff can give us these type of solutions because they are planning and engineering solutions, but they give us the basic for us to find the funding to move forward, and each entity that represents this panel and the community should look into their abilities within the projects to consider improvements. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike Bartholomew again. I'd also comment that like some of the pedestrian crashes, I'd be curious of what pedestrian inattentiveness was causing some of these crashes as well. Because I know, I speak to that because of my own experience here with Roadrunner Transit back in 2018 where we had a fatality, and it was a situation on a very dark night. Well, dark night, we could probably engineer better lighting or something in the area, but the fact was that the person that got hit by the bus wasn't paying attention. They had earbuds in their ear and they were listening, looking at their cell phone as they crossed the street. So they didn't even pay attention that a vehicle was coming at them in the dark.
And Mr. Chair, I don't know why, but for some reason, this year when we received our raw data from NMDOT, it was missing the column that had leading contributing factor. It only had, because in the previous years, it had the leading factor was this. What was the root cause of this? But I don't know why, but this year they didn't have that column. It only just listed all of the factors involved, and it's not my specialty to go and read through this crash and go, okay, this is what it was caused by. There's no way for anyone really to do that based on the data we received. Yeah, it didn't have the leading contributing factor, which was very disappointing and frustrating, which is why we just kind of looked at all the different factors and tried to look for any kind of trend whatsoever.
Is this a different practice in the data that the DOT is gathering on crashes, that there's less contributing factor information, or is it a change of policy or procedure?
Mr. Chair, I honestly don't know.
Thank you. If there's no other questions, thank you. Next item is committee and staff comments. First would be any comments from City of Las Cruces?
None at the moment.
Doña Ana County?
No comments from Doña Ana County.
Town of Mesilla, I don't think is here today, correct? Las Cruces Public Schools?
Ashley Curry from Las Cruces Public Schools. Actually, I have a few little updates on funding. I know our funding doesn't look nearly as impressive as the busing funding, but our this Las Cruces Public Schools we've got the contract in place, the notice to proceed for our TAP award from NMDOT for $187,000. So we're grateful for that. We've been anticipating that for a few months. We were also generously awarded an extension of that funding for $350,000 with no match. So that's wonderful, and the amendment for that's going into place. And then yesterday we were awarded with an additional $317,000, and that was the presentation that I did, I think even maybe last time I was here, or maybe in January for that. So thank you to the committee and to the MPO for your work and contributions and help in making that happen. But that funding should take us through the next 3 or 4 years and help educate kids. So, talking about pedestrian inattentivity or, not being visible. I mean, we're in classrooms doing role plays with kids on how to be safe pedestrians. We're talking to them about, when you're wearing something light colored, like, Michael there, you're more visible than if you were to be, wearing something dark like David, and we do little role plays and things like that. So, I mean, we're trying to change, make pedestrians more aware and visible, and thanks to funding like this, we can really continue to do that and reach more kids and more grade levels and do more of it. So, I bring up points and questions about pedestrian safety, and it's a multifaceted answer, but I think education is one of it, and our school district is doing what we can to work on that for our citizens. So thank you, that's all I have. No, it's not all I have, one more thing. April 29th, we have our family bike fiesta. So it's a big event for kids on bikes. And it's bike repair, free helmets. The NMDOT Look For Me campaign will be down there. We have all kinds of fun events to encourage kids to be on bikes and some bike rides and things like that. So if you're interested, it's at Lynn Middle School from 9 o'clock to noon on Saturday, April 29th. Everybody's invited. Thank you.
Thank you. And actually, if you have like any flyers or like Facebook posts or something about that, we can share it on our Facebook page.
Thank you so much. I'll send it your way.
Okay.
Thank you.
Next is me, Roadrunner Transit. Not really any updates. I think I mentioned that our buses are about, I believe 3 of 5 are pretty much complete. I have staff and mechanics going to Lancaster, California at the end of this month to start getting some training on the maintenance of these buses. We were hoping to get all of them delivered here in about May, but again, as I mentioned earlier in David's presentation, we're having a bit of a delay in the charging infrastructure part of it. So we're trying to figure out what will work best for that, when to get the buses delivered, because there is an issue with commissioning the chargers too. Once we have to have that done before we start charging the buses. And the only other comment I have is that our zero fare program seems to be doing pretty good. We're at slightly below or at what our pre-pandemic levels were in ridership, so that's been pretty popular. And we'll be approaching council more the end of this fiscal year to see if they want to continue this program past the end of June, which we anticipate that they will. That's all I have for now. South Central Regional Transit District.
No further comments. Thank you.
Next is NMDOT project updates.
We have a couple updates. US 70 mile marker 166 to 172 east of Las Cruces. Highland Enterprises will be cleaning and clearing the culverts and arroyos east of Las Cruces along US 70 from milepost 166 to 172, including the White Sands Middle Range entrance. Drivers can expect various lane closures on both east and westbound lanes as needed. Contractor hours of operation will be from 7 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. Monday through Thursdays. US 70 mile marker 143 to 161 within Las Cruces. Mountain States construction will continue with the roadway rehabilitation project on US 70 from milepost 143, what is the I-10 US 70 interchange, to milepost 161, what is up in Oregon. Drivers can expect various lane closures on the frontage road and intersection on all eastbound and westbound lanes from Nassau Road to Del Rey Boulevard. Starting Monday, April 3rd, 2023, crews will be back working on Nassau Road and Weisner Road doing milling and paving operational. Lanes will be closed one at a time. Contractor hours of operation will be from 7 a.m. to 5:30 p.m., Monday through Thursdays. Drivers should expect delays and plan accordingly. State routes, we have frontage road 135, what is Stern Drive, mile marker 5 to 6 in Las Cruces. The NMDOT will have lane closures and shoulder work in place for erosion control measures along Stern Drive from milepost 5 to milepost 6. A flagging operation will be in place. Motorists are asked to reduce speed, obey posted signs, and be cautious of personnel and equipment in the area. Positive note, a New Mexico 404 and I-10 bridge replacement near Anthony. We are finally substantially completed. The roadway I-10 between Las Cruces and Texas, El Paso, is at least without construction on the New Mexico side. That doesn't mean entering El Paso, anything has changed yet. And the last one that potentially impacts this area is the New Mexico 404 roadway widening between Anthony and Chaparral. Mountain State Construction will continue with the roadway reconstruction of New Mexico 404 from milepost 0.9 to milepost 8.8 near Chaparral. Currently, the contractor is installing drainage structures, subgrade preparation, and paving along the project. Subconstructors will be working on concrete box culverts, median curb and gutter near the Doniana Community College campus, and installing game fence. The speed limit has been reduced to 45 miles an hour. for the safety of the traveling public and contractor staff. Contractor hours of operation will be 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. Some Saturdays will be needed to complete the project on schedule. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I know NMDOT is also conducting a statewide public transit plan update too. And maybe the MPO do you have more information you want to share in your comments on that? Because I know MPO is working with them to host a meeting here this month.
We are, that meeting's going to be on April 25th at the City Hall in room 2007A.
At 6:30 p.m., right?
I believe it's at 6.
Yeah, I thought the thing said, okay, 6. Okay. And for those that are interested in commenting on the public plan, I know that there's a website available that you can fill out a short survey, complete a short survey on public transit. They have the survey available in both English and Spanish. And I believe all the information about their short-range transit plan update it's connectnmstudy.com, I believe it is, and it has information about the surveys and the meetings, regional meetings that they're having around the state. The regional meetings are also going to have Zoom capabilities, so you can attend remotely any of the meetings that they're having as regional meetings. That's all I have. MPO staff, do you have more?
The only thing we have going on right now, Mr. Chair, is we are currently doing the reviews for the Transportation Project Fund, and that is moving forward. That's all MPO staff has.
Thank you. I don't see any further public comment. With that, I would take a motion for adjournment.
Ashley Curry, so moved.
Michael Garza, second.
It's been moved and second. All in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned.